So sorry if this is not done the best. This is the third time I've done this. Um, some reason, whenever I speak about government problems that are real, it gets corrupted as soon as the end goes. And only 3 times has it ever happened. And it's the ones where I've explained these issues the best. And this isn't going to be my best. The last one was perfect, but this one, not so much. So, what I'm going over here is why you see so much homeless people and what you should think about. This is a make you think. So, for one thing, you hear a lot that the people that are homeless are there because they spend all their money on drugs, right? They spend all their money on drugs, and that's why they're living homeless in the woods and in shelters, right? Well, that's just not the case for most of them. I'll give you 2 examples. I dated a girl named Angly Beth. Now, she was born in Cambodia. Now, her father beat her, burned her, her eye became crooked, and she didn't look too good because she was a 5-year-old getting beat until her eye popped out. She was brought to America. Her father and mother did not speak English. Now, while she was in America, the big pharmaceutical companies and the state of Massachusetts decided to suck her dry. Now, at a young age, she was put in the institutions. Now, her father and mother knew that if they continued to let this process happen, they would be able to collect Social Security on her. So they let this happen. Now, what did the doctors do to this girl, and what did she really have wrong with her? Well, for one, she wasn't really suicidal. She was scared of being alone in a shelter or in the woods. I dated her for more than a year, and she did fine, but she had emotional issues. She couldn't work, and she was afraid of everything, and she used to cry a lot. This stemmed from her never, ever being able to adjust to being an adult and always being on pills, drugs, pharmaceuticals, always being convinced that she had something wrong with her. Now, her parents didn't speak English, but at a young age, apparently, according to her, what she told me was that the doctors told her she had a lot of diseases at a young age. They told her that she was bipolar, she had depression, all these other diseases. When she was only like 10 years old, they're drilling this into her. And she repeated this to her other doctors because she didn't know any better. She was just learning English. On top of this, she was bilingual. She speaks all these Asian languages when she came to the country. So her English writing, her English was all delayed. All of her English stuff was delayed by at least 4 years. She was much slower than the other kids, but if you ask any other kid to speak Cambodian or write Cambodian, they would be they would be mentally ill in Cambodian, right? How many people could go to Cambodia and be considered not slow? Come on, how many Americans, raise your hand if you could go to Cambodia today and just integrate into society and you wouldn't be slower than the last guy? Of course you would be. So anyway, she speaks Cambodian, she writes Cambodian, but yet the U.S. government decides that she's slow, she's depressed, she's bipolar, and she needs to be medicated and hospitalized. So they start holding her down, they start screwing with her head, they start giving her multiple medications, and her parents have no clue what's going on. Don't forget, her parents are like Cambodian medicine, like they had me throw away my antibiotics to try to use some Cambodian antibiotic that was oil, that actually worked too. So they're just not able to speak English, and they want the Social Security money so they can pay the rent. They want some rent money. And this is also very common in the state of Massachusetts. You got a lot of these foster parents being convinced, almost working with the Department of Health and Human Services to convince to make up mental illnesses. They really do. They want the parents to really push fake mental illnesses to try to collect Social Security to make these foster parents and all these their job easier. There was another girl I knew named Jasmine. Now, she hated marijuana, she hated drugs. All the way to age 18, she hated drugs. But then one day, she got in a fist fight with her stepbrother that was twice her weight. And they sent her to a mental institution, and they got her on drugs. Oh my God. I mean, that was lithium. By the way, I was on lithium too. Lithium, Thorazine, Seroquel, all those antipsychotics and antidepressants that everybody loves to give the children. And then she came back looking all sad and depressed. It looked like her soul was ripped out of her. It wasn't the same person that left. I asked her what's wrong. She said, I don't feel good. I go, well, what do you mean? She goes, I'm on a lot of medications now. Well, she was on these medications when she came back because she had a fist fight with her older brother, or actually younger brother, that looked like an older brother. I mean, she was a skinny twig, and he was a big, fat, heavy dude. So, I mean, now she's being drugged for a fight with a bigger dude. And she's anti-drug. So she doesn't know how to handle that she's being forced to take pills. And she's 18. This isn't the first time, she said, either. This wasn't the first time they forced her to take drugs. So I ran back into Jasmine in her late 20s, and she became a drug addict. She said she couldn't mentally handle living outside in the woods or in tents, and she didn't know how to live like this. Also, she had a lot of mental problems she never faced. This is another big part. These people aren't facing what big pharmaceutical companies and what these doctors are doing to them. Like, for instance, my own personal, I actually was in Lowell Treatment Center, and they allowed somebody as an adult to come in my room and try to rape me over and over after I reported it every night, until the point where they caught it on camera. On the fourth day, I'm screaming to the day staff that they need to do something about this. And then they check all 3 days and they go, oops, we allowed somebody to rape this kid. Well, can you sign a paperwork making sure we're not liable? I refused to sign. That was bullshit. I mean, how dare you have adults being raped in rooms and they come out and tell the staff member to please stop allowing people to come in my room, and then they come back in to rape you some more. That's fucked up shit, but that's as an adult. Here, let's go back to age 13. When at age 13, I burned a slug with a match as a science experiment. I was trying to see if the slime was fireproof and if I could make a jacket out of the slime. Stupidest thing to try to think of. It was just like, how can I use this slime idea? Anyways, I was put in a mental institution because I did this for over 30 days. Now, one of the staff members decided it was a good idea to give me the double dose treatment. That's where they give you 5 medications. Then you go to your room, and after 30 minutes, your roommate goes out there and tells them you didn't take your medication when you really did. Then the staff members come in, grab you, and double dose you with the same. So now you have 10 medications in you in the same hour. I still don't know how to process this. So I talk about it. I've moved on. I've forgiven these evil people. This woman who did this also smiled, and she used to get thrills off of seeing children in pain. That also bothered me. It bothers me a lot to see medical professionals getting thrills off of hurting children. That's so messed up, but this is what's happening. You got certain medical professionals who are doing this for profit or for thrills. And this is messed up. You got other medical professionals whistleblowing. I can connect you to some YouTubers or some online horror story channels or some doctors, or there's a lot of people coming forward about this like me now. So you got a lot of homeless people living out there who have never done a drug in their life, but yet you got all these opiates being prescribed. Like, for instance, I was prescribed Vicodin at the age of 15 because of the over-medication I was getting. I was getting severe migraines, severe heart palpitations. I couldn't even move in the mornings. I also experienced an overdose at age 7. And I was telling doctors about this overdose, and nobody seemed to even care. And I even was trafficked around the country, but the teachers were noticing this overdose. They even wanted me to do speech therapy and physical therapy, and they saw a big change all of a sudden. So what do you think they did for me? Oh, they gave me more drugs. They gave me Thorazine, Haldol. They gave me, the same thing. Or they gave me Quantapin with Seroquel. They gave me Lamictal. They gave me Risperidone, what made my nipples leak liquid. I had to show my nephew and his stepmother, because my mother already was told and didn't care. I told my mother my nipples were leaking. She said, don't blame the meds and send me away. They didn't even pay no attention to it. I show my nephew, he's like, holy shit, that's not normal. Your nipples aren't supposed to be leaking milk. Then I tell my, and this is happening to children. They don't know how to deal with this shit. So it was mentally scarring me. These doctors and pharmaceutical companies were mentally scarring me, and I was an orphan, and I went through foster care, but I had my own version of hell because I had a mother that was unstable. My mother did not know how to properly give the medications, and these doctors were very happy to overprescribe. And this is why we have an opiate problem in America. We got doctors over prescribing opiates, but they're prescribing massive amounts of dangerous drugs to children and foster parents who are in charge of children. And these, I know it might be difficult to understand this if you came from a home with a family, but if you came from an orphanage like St. Anne's, or if you went to a mental institution during St. Anne's like Lowell Treatment Center, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because, oh my God, when you mix foster parents, pharmaceuticals, psychotic psych doctors, psychotic parents, or just orphans all together, it always seems to end up with them living in the woods and not knowing how to deal with it. So Angly Beth never did a drug in her life. She hates drugs. She'll never do drugs. But yet, she's homeless, living outside in the woods or shelters or in that situation. Jasmine wanted nothing to do with drugs, and the pharmaceutical companies, doctors, and foster parents forced her to take drugs like Thorazine, and hers was lithium, Thorazine, Seroquel, and Trazodone. That was her mix. And us orphans that come from this system, we're so used to being drugged at a young age, or we're so used to hearing about these pills and drugs fucking us up. We actually know the names like it's like nothing, like it's no big deal that children are being given Thorazine, or that children are being given these dangerous drugs, even though they've only seen a doctor for 15 minutes and the mother is doctor shopping you around. Like, for instance, I lived in Massachusetts and Westford, Texas, New Mexico, Massachusetts, then back to Massachusetts. How much do you think the doctors really knew about me? Or was it all based off my crazy mother's information so that she could collect Social Security and undo what she was doing? Like, for instance, she gave me an overdose at age 7. She took the pharmaceuticals, she gave them to me, and she messed up by putting some opiates in them, or something that she wasn't supposed to. And if you go back to my other videos, okay, I'm not going to go through it, I experienced an overdose and my nervous system was affected for life. Teachers realized this. Doctors were starting to hear me speak about it at age 5 to 7. But instead, I was trafficked all over the country. Well, then when I came back to Massachusetts, these behaviors continue. They continue to over-medicate. So a lot of these homeless stuff that you see all over the country, it's not because these people are spending their money on drugs. It's because a lot of people want to make money off of drugs and force them on the children and fuck up their heads. Like Angly Beth, who only spoke English till the age of like 10 years old and had no idea what was going on with her. Still to this day, she will never hold a job, and I really, really feel for this woman. You got Jasmine, same thing. She hated drugs, but by the time she was in her late 20s or in her 20s, she's on crack. She's selling her body as a prostitute. Ang Lee will never be a drug addict, but she'll be living on the streets for the rest of her life because of what the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors did to her with her father for Social Security money. Now, the doctors did it for different reasons, but the foster parents do this for money, for security, for knowing that they can drop the kids off in a shelter when they turn 18 so that they don't ever have to support these children in any way. There's a whole system being created that are destroying children's minds on purpose. And this is why we have a serious homeless population. This has been going on in a lot of states for a long time, like Massachusetts especially has been crippling children in this way that I just described since the 90s. at the age of 4 years old, I was in St. Anne's orphanage, and another one of my little buddies, my another orphan, put ketchup in my orange juice. At this point, he wanted me to get mad, but I didn't get mad. I just forgave him. I just said whatever, and I went back to eating my scrambled eggs. He got up out of the table and went to tell staff something. The staff asked me to talk to me. They asked me if I took my medication. I said, yes, I did. Of course I took my medication. At which point, they whispered in the corner, held me down, and forced me to take a double dose of medication. Now, that only happened to me in 2 times in my entire life, but it should never happen to any child where he's given the same medication twice in the same hour, especially with dangerous medications like Ritalin, Adderall, Xanax, Thorazine, Seroquel, Lamictal, all these, there's so many, lithium, there's so many drugs out there that I was given and I was not properly administered. And this is very common. I'm not the only orphan who had to go through this. Many other orphans have to go through this. And this is why we see so many homeless people. If you go to the homeless shelters, you'll see people who are either on Social Security, they're disabled, they're crippled, or they were adopted or went in the foster care system. If you spend enough time getting to know what type of population seems to be living in these 10 cities and shelters, they're elderly people who are on Social Security, or they're young people who are on Social Security, or they're young people who were in orphanages, or they're young people that were in foster care, or they're young people who were adopted. And they all seem to be on massive amounts of drugs that are given by doctors. Well, when you do the same thing over and over and over and over and expect different results, that's insanity. So these psych doctors are completely insane. What these doctors is doing is completely insane. They're hurting children. They're crippling them. They're causing permanent damage to their minds and bodies. And they're putting crazy parents in control of drugs they shouldn't be. My mother gave me Epicac punishments, full bottle of Epicac. She gave me an overdose at age 7. She was actually poisoning me on Halloween so I couldn't go out on purpose. She was giving me drugs I shouldn't be taking. She was mixing in her own pills. I was given Vicodin at the age of 15 because of the side effects of the pharmaceuticals I was being given already. Instead of the doctors at the emergency room thinking, hey, maybe we should stop over-medicating him. This child is 15 years old. He's in the emergency room. He's on 7 medications that have severe side effects. He's coming to the emergency room feeling like his head's going to split open. So maybe we should have a conversation about cutting these medications down. No, instead they load me up with Vicodin. And then my mother decides to pop the Vicodin out of the closet, confusing my brain even more. Of course I'm going to have problems. I got a drunk mother popping Vicodin. I got doctors overprescribing. And then when that overprescribing goes wrong, we got doctors prescribing more. And then when that overprescribing goes wrong, we got doctors prescribing more. This is fucked up shit. This is why we have so many people living outside in these 10 cities. We got a serious problem in America. These pharmaceuticals and doctors are going nuts. They're taking advantage of the poor and the vulnerable.